Hello, this is Paul Crammy of Sirius Software. Today's topic, we're going to cover a few settings in user options and then just a brief introduction to the Activity Manager. I hope you'll find this topic helpful. I'm going to pause for just a second to shift to a different view. And now I think we're ready to begin. First of all, what are user options? Well, the best way for me to answer that is to go up to the setup item up here at the top in the taskbar, and I'm going to choose system setup. Now, what you see in the system setup, first of all, you have to have security privileges in order to access this particular screen. But the settings that are in the system setup apply to every user that has a username and can access control. So everything applies across the board to all users. And of particular interest are a few items that I want to just quickly point out. And if I come down, I'm looking for email right here up at the top. So the email settings here, you would first tell it what you're using, whether it's Outlook or some internal outbound email mechanism, where more parameters than just saying Outlook have to be applied. But this would be an email that would apply to all users of control. That's just one example of how this works. So think of this as global parameters for all control users. Now I'm going to go back up to setup, and this time I'm going to choose user options. User options are unique in that they are the preferences for each person that logs in. So whatever you would put in here would apply to your login only. Now there are three that I want to draw to your attention that we discussed briefly in one of the other webinar topics. And the first one is the email option down here on the left, lower left. This is your unique login preference for emailing, outbound emailing. So similar to the one in the system setup, you would designate whether you're going to be using Windows Outlook or change the parameter, and you would use an internal mechanism where you have to provide more information, email address, and a lot of these other parameters that are highlighted in yellow. So this represents your settings for outbound email in control. Another one that we talked about in one of the previous sessions is, I need to cancel this, is the dashboard. In that earlier session, we mentioned that you can choose a dashboard that you want to use for yourself. Okay, so that whenever you log in, that's the dashboard that will open up. And notice here that mine says default home, but if I pull this downward arrow, you can see that there are other dashboards that are available that you can choose from. Okay. So if I'm going to be involved in accounting, then I would choose one of the accounting dashboards. The one that I prefer to use for myself is this one called Default Home. So once you've selected it and say save, now for subsequent logins that you would do for control, that would be the dashboard that would preload to represent your preferences of the dashboards. Another one that we talked about In the miscellaneous area, a lot of times when you're putting descriptions into an order in the description field or in the company field, sometimes it's nice to be able to enter the date and time, or particularly the date that you did something. So if you use the miscellaneous options and then choose edit. Now I've already done this where I've entered the date time field, and I went up to merge fields to do that. Merge fields, and then if I scroll down, these are the choices that I can put in: just the date time, the day of the week, the time, and other entries that you could choose. So I chose date time, and notice that that's what it appears. I already had it in there, so let me just delete that, and I'll do it again so that you can see what was there. Now, later on, when you're doing an estimate or you're creating an order or you're putting note into a company record, you can just use the Control T and in a field, and that will enter the date time by just doing the Control T without actually entering the time by itself. Now, other items that I want to bring to your attention we've talked about the miscellaneous one, show the date time, choosing the dashboard, and then also this is where you would choose the auto log off and the auto lock out. And if you remember, that's what we talked about the other day, whether you wanted to use those. So it's also in this miscellaneous area. And if I come over to these two items here, and I put a check mark by one of them, this would represent the lockout, and this would represent the log off. So if I put a check mark by both of them, then I can designate the amount of time, maybe 15 minutes instead of 10 minutes. Now, what that means is from this time forward, if your system is idle for 15 minutes, then it's going to lock out the screen where you would have to re-enter your user password in order to get back in. And if you haven't done anything for 15 minutes, then in this case, the system would actually log you out. So realistically, if you're using both, you would probably do a lockout of the screen, maybe after 10 minutes, 5 minutes. And then if its system is still idle after maybe 15 minutes, then it would actually log you off. So the three main things in this particular area are the lock off, lockout, and a log off, the use of perhaps a date time, and the choosing of a dashboard. Let me cancel that. Choosing of the dashboard and the choosing of your preference for your own personalized email parameter. So again, just to kind of summarize this particular topic, we just touched on these three most important pieces of it. Is the ability to alter parameters for your individual login or username, rather than relying on the global parameters that apply across the board. The next topic that I want to just cover in a very brief manner, because it would be far too detailed to do it in this session, and that's the Activity Manager. Activity Manager can be accessed from a navigator section of this dashboard, or I can go up to the taskbar and choose the activity manager there. So if I do that and choose my calendar, okay, now what we're going to do is start at the top and work our way down and discuss some of the key attributes of the calendar. So first of all, up here at the very top left, I can look at, this is currently in a calendar view, but I could look at it in a list view. So that's the first thing to keep in mind. Then down in the second area, this light blue-gray row, I can look at a one-day view, which is what I'm doing now. I can look at a 5-day view, a full 7-day week, the entire month, and so on. So let's come back to a one-day view. Then these other items that are here, there's the 31. This kind of looks at things from a side to side and then down. I don't particularly care for that one, but then here, when you are working with the calendar and the activity manager, there are tasks, the activities that you're going to create. And those can either be scheduled activities for a specific date and a specific time, or they can be timeless for a particular day. Now, all of the activities then have the ability to mark them complete, and when you have completed that particular task. And that's what this show completed means. So if I click the button that says, I want to see the completed items, you will see evidence of that like this, where you see an activity that's got a gray background and a line through it. That indicates that this particular activity has been completed and is marked as such in the system. Now, I could look at show calendar. If you notice that the calendar that was on the right margin disappeared. So if I put it back on, now you're simply seeing the calendar, for a period of time. Now, what I want to do is over here on the far, far left, kind of in a sideways view. Now we're looking at other calendars for other users of control. So if you're needing to look at the availability of someone else, then you can put a check mark by that person's calendar, and you can see what their calendar is for this particular day, for January 1st. Okay? If you're scheduling a meeting or some kind of an appointment where you want to look at multiple calendars so that you can make sure that you pick a time that both parties or all parties are available for, then you would simply check the two calendars that you're interested in, and then you can pick your time for that particular activity. So now let's go over and actually create an activity and review the different kinds of activities that there are. So if I come over to the action toolbar on the far right and choose the downward arrow, what you see there, it represents the different kinds of activities that can be scheduled. You can schedule creation of an email, just a simple note, an other one that's designated as other, that you're going to follow up with a call, you're going to schedule an appointment, a meeting, just a simple to-do list, maybe for yourself or for a to-do list for another employee or user, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to choose my meeting. And now, regardless of which activity type you select, this is the same kind of dialog box, parameter box that you're going to see. So we're going to walk through creating this activity from top left and then work our way over and down as we discuss this. So if we're scheduling a meeting, in likelihood that's going to involve more than one person, so we would choose add, and then I would choose the other person that I want to have this activity appear on their calendar, and I would say, okay, so now I'm the two are Linda and myself. Moving over here to the right, this contact type just simply is pre-populated based on what you chose. So that would be a meeting, a note, an appointment, etc. The subtype I've not really used. I don't know that it's even populated here. Any kind of reminder that you want, maybe 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 30 minutes ahead of time, you can choose that reminder. The priority, just if that's important to know that it's low, high, or just a normal priority. Any kind of description that you want to put in here would be helpful. The location, you would choose there are no descriptions that are predefined, so you can just type anything in there that you need. Same thing with location. Now here, if this meeting is about an order, that's what's shown here. If it's about an estimate, then you would simply change it, okay, to whatever might be related in a part of this particular topic. So if it's an order, then you would want to browse through and choose which order it's going to pertain to. This tells you then who the company is and who that contact person is. And then you can alter these if you need to, add some additional detail for the company. Down in this area here, you can just free format text, enter anything relative to notes that you might want to add. Down here in this lower section now, this is the date that you want this meeting to be held. So let's say that it's the 1st of January. Here you can say whether it's schedule a specific time. Here you would select that it's going to be timeless. Notice that the time choices disappear. It's an all-day event. So let's say that it's a time, and we want it to roll over if it's not completed. So if we schedule the meeting for today, and the day ends and it hasn't been completed, then this activity would roll to the next day. So let's say that this activity we want to schedule for 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and that we expect it to last for 30 minutes. So it's going to start at 1, run for 30 minutes, end at 1:30. Now, if this is going to be an ongoing meeting on a regular basis, then you can choose the make recurring and say if it's going to occur daily, if it's going to occur weekly, monthly, yearly. So let's skip that so we don't add this to it. This is who it was created by and on what date it was created. And then, so let's save this for right now so we can see it. So on the 1st, here's the activity that showed up on Linda's calendar up here at the top, and on my calendar over here to the right. So that's what it would look like. And if we open that, this is what we would see, just exactly what it was that we had previously filled out. Now, all of the activities, the activity types, they have a different color scheme associated with them. So that's the reason that you see some of these that are yellow, some of these that are kind of a goldish color, and then the one that's gray. So let's pretend that 1 o'clock has occurred and the meeting is now done. Now we want to mark that item is complete. So we would open it up, say complete, and whether we want to complete it on all calendars, which would be this choice, or on just the calendar that was selected. So let's say that it was done, meeting was scheduled, it happened, and now it's completed. And we're going to indicate what time we started. And let's say that we started at 1 and we finished at nice if I push the right button over there, sorry. So we started at 1. Well, noon is good enough, and we ran it for 30 minutes, and we finished it. So now we're going to say okay. And now notice that they have the different color border, and that you see the line through the activity itself. The basic key points about this, I really alluded to the manual scheduling of an activity, whether it's just adding a note or scheduling a meeting, an appointment. The activity manager can also be used in a more automated fashion as part of marketing initiatives or production related initiatives where you can, on a production standpoint, where you can actually schedule equipment and you can schedule people that are involved in the production process. Likewise, if you're going to be automating some of your marketing initiatives, where you want to automate follow-up either with an email, those are very viable and very helpful things to do. They involve the use of creating different queries and then a macro to automate that process. And obviously, that's a topic for a different different time because of the time constraints here. So I hope this session has been helpful. There are 3 or 4 other topics that will be covered in separate videos. Again, I hope this has been helpful to you. Take care.